Welcome back, fight fans. Welcome back. Let's just dig right into it. Terence Crawford versus Saul Canelo Alvarez. I've had a lot of requests for this video just for us to break down the potential of that fight happening. How do we see that fight going? And if that fight can be made. And I just want to go over a few things. Terence Crawford just unified and was undisputed at 140 pounds, moved up to 147, stopped both bigger guys at 147 pounds, is already a world champion, and is the most avoided guy at 147 pounds. He's the true boogeyman of the welterweight division, the most feared man at the welterweight division, because he's offered millions of dollars to Errol Spence, Danny Garcia, and everyone else, and these guys just do not want to take the fight. And so if you look at Terence Crawford, he's an elite level boxer. He's a pound per pound fighter, and he's either number one or number two in the world, depending on how you view him. On the other side, Saul Canelo Alvarez is an elite level fighter. He's the king of the middleweight division. He's either number one or number two in the world, depending on how you view him. And he's already been in there with some of the best fighters, Miguel Cotto, it is Landy Latta, Floyd Mayweather Jr. So he's been in there with different styles, Triple G, and he's about to step in against a Danny Jacobs. So Canelo Alvarez has, as a special skill set and talent that can face many different styles. He's a very special fighter, and he's a Hall of Fame type fighter. So if you look at Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford, the first thing you have to figure out is, can the fight get made? Of course the fight can get made. It's a great fight, but the problem is the weights are so far apart that I don't ever see this fight happening. You have to look at it. Canelo Alvarez is fighting at 160, can go up to 168, and he's even mentioned fighting a Sergey Kovalev, who's a 175 pounder. So you have to look at Terence Crawford. He probably should not venture outside of welterweight. So welterweight should be the max that Terence Crawford should be fighting at 147 pounds. But if Terence Crawford decided to go to 154 for a special fight like a Canelo Alvarez has already stated that he's not moving down from 160. So he's not going back to 154 for any particular reason, because Canelo Alvarez doesn't want to drain himself of his weight. So if Canelo's not going to 154, then that means Terence Crawford would have to move all the way up to 160 pounds, which is just not a weight that he can compete at comfortably, because it's just going to be too much of a size difference. It's not going to be even a challenge for Canelo at that point. And so you have to look at it. 154 would be more of an ideal weight, but even then Canelo has a massive advantage over Terence Crawford. I just think the weights are too far apart. I think if both of these guys fought at 147 pounds, it'd be one of the fights of the century. But Canelo's not going to come anywhere near that, and he's not leaving 160. It's a dream fight, but I just don't see it happening or being made. The weights are too far apart. 154, if that fight ever did happen, I think Terence Crawford, to stand a chance in that fight, because he has natural skills and abilities to compete with anybody, since he's such a special fighter and so talented, he'd have to be extremely defensive. He'd have to be more of a Floyd Mayweather style. So that means he'd have to stop fighting in the pocket as much as he does. He has to not go for any knockouts. He has to stop trying to break down the fighter, and he's going to ultimately have to stay on the back foot and use lateral movement the whole fight to try to throw Canelo Alvarez off balance. It would be one of those type of fights where he's going to have to be so defensive and pot shot here and there and make it extremely boring and unattractive and unappealing fight for the fans, because that's the only way that he'd be able to compete against a guy that big, that strong, because his natural weight should stay at 147 pounds. This is where Terence Crawford belongs, at 147, and Canelo Alvarez should not go below 160. So this is a dream fight. It's a fight that would be fantastic if they were in the same weight class, but they're not. I think that the weight is too far apart, but in boxing you never know what can happen. But once again, Unbiased as always is the IBFP. Please share, like, and you must absolutely subscribe.